expect as you go into this program. So a little bit about our team. With us here today is, well, myself. I'm Evan. I'm a program coordinator with LifeSci. Also with us is Sharon Albert Kaplan, who is our senior program director. Bill Hammersley, a program coordinator with the team, and not with us is Sally Fang, who is our associate director of career development. We also have Richard Robin and Zara on the call as well. They're part of our team, but not directly involved with the placement process. So you can reach the four of us pictured at internships@upperweststrategies.com. If you have any questions, if you need any support with our application or beyond, we're here to help you. A little bit about our program. We are part of the New York City Economic Development Corporation's 10-year, $1.1 billion initiative to grow the life sciences industry in New York City. We are part of the workforce development aspect of that program. We offer paid internships for college and graduate students in science, business, and tech roles across the life sciences industry. We are also recruiting for a handful of entry-level full-time and part-time jobs. And I believe we're in the 8th year of the program now. And since 2017, we're very close to placing our 1,000th intern. I think we're at 960 interns placed at over 220 companies and organizations across the city. Just a really quick piece about our eligibility. So there are 3 main criteria. The first one is that you must be legally able to work in the U.S., either as a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, a DACA participant, or someone with TPS status, or have a work visa that allows work without sponsorship. If you are on a work visa, typically F1 visas are the main kind of visa that we work with. And you would apply through either CPT or OPT. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have specifically regarding this eligibility requirement. The second requirement is that you must be enrolled in a college or university in New York City, or be a New York City resident enrolled elsewhere. So for instance, if you are going to a university in Kansas, but you went to high school in New York, or you have a residency in New York, you would still be qualified. If you lived originally in California and you're coming to a university at NYU, for instance, you are also eligible. And if you recently graduated, spring 2023 or later, then you are still welcome to apply. After that point, anyone who graduated in 2022, for instance, unfortunately is no longer eligible. The very last eligibility requirement, which isn't a hard stop for anyone, is that we do technically have a 3.0 GPA requirement. However, if you have below this, you're welcome to still apply. There is a section in our application where you can sort of provide context as to why your GPA might have been lower. If there was some life circumstance, if there was some issue, you can, give us that context and you're still welcome to submit an application with us. Okay. One more thing before we continue. If you have any questions, you can send those directly either to me, Sharon, or Bill. And we will answer those questions at the end if they're not answered throughout the presentation. So yeah, go ahead, send those to us. We'll definitely go through all of them as we get closer to the Q&A section. Pictured here on this slide, you can see just a sampling of the companies that we work with. You can go ahead and take a look. Most of these will probably not be familiar to you. A handful of the larger organizations that we work with, like maybe the New York Stem Cell Foundation, for instance, or Columbia, might be recognizable. But the reason a lot of these companies and these logos might not be familiar is because a number of them are smaller startup companies that have either recently emerged or are really just getting off the ground in New York City. Typically, our program works with smaller biotech startups of 10 or fewer employees, though we do have partnerships with a lot of larger organizations like academic medical centers, hospitals, research foundations, and things like that. So again, this is just a sampling. Most of these companies were the ones that we placed with last year across all 5 of the boroughs. On this next slide, you can just see sort of where these companies kind of fall within the industry. We have primarily a lot of pharma and biotech diagnostic companies, and we work with a lot of digital health and health tech companies. You can see we have a number of companies in sustainability and climate tech, Maybe these companies are working with synthetic materials for the fashion industry, or they're trying to create some kind of, you know, protein or sustainable product to kind of help with in the climate tech industry. We do work with a lot of education and outreach organizations, companies that work maybe with youth populations in high schools or schools across the city, bringing STEM education, to the classroom. We work with quite a few medical equipment and devices, companies that might be making prototype medical devices, for instance. And we also work with quite a few nonprofit foundations across the city. And let me see, did I miss anything? Yeah, another sector that we work with is the hospitals and academic medical centers. So I mentioned that we do work with Columbia. We also work with Mount Sinai, NYU, and the Rockefeller Institute. We usually send applications their way if they have larger programs that they're hoping to gain more applicants for. So yeah, this is just sort of where a lot of our companies fall into the different sectors in the life sciences, but they are all still life science companies. Here you can see we technically have two tracks, as we used to call them, our science track and then our business management track, but there's really no track that you have to go down exclusively. If you are, for instance, a business student or a marketing student or someone with that kind of background, you're still more than welcome to apply to the science roles that we have, and vice versa. So if you're interested in maybe applying to roles across the spectrum of what we have, you're very welcome to do that. This is just showing sort of the types of roles that we have. In our science roles, we have biology, chemistry and biochemistry, a lot of biomedical engineering roles and data science roles. And there are a lot of other roles that fall within this field. In our management track, we have business, marketing, and finance roles. A handful of accounting roles might come out throughout the year. Otherwise, we do have IT roles, public policy and public affairs, and then supply chains and operations are common as well. But again, you're more than welcome to apply to positions in either of these tracks. A lot of people ask us that question, can I apply to a science role if I only have a business background? Absolutely. And then here we just have examples of specific job titles that you might see as you go through our application process. Once you have access to our job board, we currently have around 50 positions posted. And here is just examples of frequent roles that we tend to have posted on our job portal. So I'll let you read through some of these, but very common ones that we see in terms of science positions are research and development roles, lab positions, data science and full stack development. We do have a handful of bioinformatics roles that come up. And then a lot of these roles, or a lot of the companies we work with, are looking for people with machine learning or AI backgrounds. So you might see some of those roles in our portal as well. On the business side of things, we do have quite a few operations positions that open up, marketing roles, social media management, things like that. But again, this is just a handful of the roles that we have that are sort of common in our portal. I think with that, I'm going to pass it on to Sharon, who's going to talk a little bit more about our application process, the program timing, and what it looks like to apply.
Thank you, Evan. So in terms of program timing, one important thing to note is that our program and our application are open year-round. So we do reset our application once a year on September 1st. So right now we are in our 2024-2025 program cycle, and any applications submitted from this past September 1st, 3 weeks ago, until the end of August, will give access to any jobs that are posted and any internships that are posted throughout this academic year. So I'm assuming that most of you have not yet submitted an application this year. Once you submit one, you will be able to apply for any positions that we post through August 31st. One thing to note is that while we do place applicants into internships and jobs throughout the year, summer internships are particularly popular. And we especially want to encourage you, if you are interested in a summer internship, not to wait until the cusp of summer to submit an application. We actually encourage you to get an application in by December 31st. That is our early bird deadline, and will help ensure that you have the highest possible chance of actually being placed in a summer internship, because you will get access to more positions, the ones that are posted earlier when we have fewer applicants, and we will be able to give your application greater attention. In terms of placements, we are placing people into positions on a year-round basis. We have actually already posted about 15 positions since the beginning of this year, and we are continuing to post people into roles on a nearly daily basis. So get your application in early and you will get access to the positions that are currently posted. Our placements for non-summer roles will continue even once summer internships have started. So again, we're placing on a rolling basis throughout the year. For anyone that is placed into an internship or job through our program, we do offer a special boot camp late in May, right before Memorial Day weekend, and right after most people have completed their academic year. This is an amazing opportunity for those selected for the program to get to know their fellow program participants, to hear from and meet with leaders in the life sciences field here in New York City, to participate in professional development and other professional skills training. And it's really an amazing opportunity. We really do see those who are selected for our program as the next generation of leaders of New York City's life sciences ecosystem. So we want to make sure that you get to know each other and that you get connected with others who are already a part of this ecosystem, because our whole city is going to be depending on you in the future. Internships and jobs themselves start on varying dates. If you are applying for a summer internship, that will most likely be taking place between May and August, though dates can vary. But other positions can be anytime throughout the year. So as I said, we've already placed some interns this year, and they may have already started their internships and are doing kind of a fall internship or a fall into spring internship. But there will also be positions that start in the winter and ones that start in the spring, and then finally plenty of summer internships as well. So a little overview of how our placement process works. You will apply to our program by submitting an application online. We have put the link here of where you can apply, but you don't have to copy it down, because we will be sharing a copy of this presentation with everyone in attendance today after the presentation is over. And we've also posted these links in the chat if you would like to copy those. Once you have submitted your online application, which will include your resume and some other materials, we will provide a link so that you can have access to all of our currently open positions. Using that link, you will be able to see a list of all the available positions, and for any that interest you and for which you feel you are qualified, you can apply for that position by submitting a cover letter to apply for any specific roles that interest you. And do keep in mind that we're not even going to look at your application until you have submitted one of these cover letters, because we are going to be looking at your application with that specific position in mind and decide if we think you're qualified for that position. It's not going to affect whether we might find you qualified for another role, because we will consider you separately for any other roles you apply to. That's why we ask for cover letters, so that we know that you're interested, and then we can take a look at how qualified you are for that particular role. Once we have done that, if we find you to be qualified for the position and to be a good fit, we are going to forward your application to that employer for their consideration. And at that point, the selection process is entirely in the company's hands. And the individual companies will decide who they wish to invite for interviews. It's generally not every single person whose application they receive. And then from those they interview, they will choose who they would like to hire. But if they do hire you, then you are officially a part of our 2024-2025 LifeSci NYC Internship Program cohort. In addition to being able to see our positions once you've applied through that link we'll send you, we do also post all academic year and full-time job positions at this link here. And again, we have shared that in the chat, and we will be sharing it with you following this presentation. But if you wanted to just take a look to see the types of positions that we might be offering right now, you can do that. You will still need to submit an application at the provided link if you decide you would like to apply for that role. Here are a few snapshots of what our program looks like. As I mentioned, we do have a boot camp where all selected interns will be invited to come together and experience all the programming that I mentioned. We also offer various intern talks and site visits for our selected interns, as well as tours and career panels. And then finally, some events that are sort of more just for socializing with your fellow interns and or networking with both your fellow interns as well as leaders in the New York City life sciences ecosystem. So let's talk a little bit about what it takes to submit a strong application to our program. So our application requires you to submit a resume and information about your academic enrollment and personal contact information and those kinds of things. Beyond that, we have a number of optional elements of the application. One of those is the personal statement. This can be a great way to provide us with additional context and color as to why you're interested in our program and what you might bring to a particular role that you might fill. Information that might not be obvious from just looking at a resume. So it can be a great thing to take the time to add to your application. In that personal statement, the first thing to do is note that it's called a personal statement. So it's really important that you make it personal to you. Talk about, be very specific and concrete and talk about your experience, your qualifications, as well as what you would like to learn and why you want to gain an internship. You really want to demonstrate that your interest is genuine, so make it thoughtful. Describe the type of work you might wish to do, the type of place you might wish to work, and you are welcome to include multiple types of opportunities that might appeal to you. You don't have to say, well, I'm only interested in this one type of opportunity. It's great if you're open to both, say, lab jobs as well as management jobs within the life sciences. Be sure to read the prompt carefully. That will help you be specific and answer the question that we're asking. If you're vague and abstract, it's not going to do you any favors. It's not going to help us understand why you could be a great fit for the program. And I would highly encourage you not to use AI or ChatGPT to write this, because that is not going to be personal, as we've been discussing. It's, if you want to use an online program to proofread it, that's great. Make sure your spelling and grammar is good, but I wouldn't allow the internet to write your personal statement for you. Another optional piece of our application is a video. This is a great way to personalize your application and really make it come alive. When we are looking at an application or when one of our employers is looking at candidates, obviously they receive your cover letter, they receive your resume, but they're receiving piles of those from various applicants. If you want to make it really clear that who's the person behind these pieces of paper or these online pieces of paper that they're looking at, it's great to provide one of these videos. There is not a specific prompt that is associated with this request, but it's a great way to talk about something that maybe you didn't entirely have room for in your resume or cover letter. Talk about where your initial interest in this field came from. It might be a childhood experience. It might be something that you witnessed in your community, or maybe a health crisis that you saw in a member of your family. Or maybe it's a class you took anytime, from childhood through college that just really sparked your interest in learning more or making a difference or solving a problem. You can talk about, let's say you did a research project or you participated in a club that was somehow relevant. This is a great way to showcase your passion and give additional detail about those kinds of experiences. It just really gives an extra dimension to your application, makes it personal. And as Evan noted, many of the companies that we are placing interns into are tiny startups. These are something that, you would probably be working directly with the founders. They don't have a large staff at their disposal. This company of theirs is really, it's their baby, it's their life's work, it's their passion. And they only want to hire somebody to work with them who is really also going to mirror that passion and who they can trust. So seeing your face in a video and hearing you talk about your genuine interest in the field can really help give them the confidence that you would be passionate enough to really make a difference and make an effort at their company and do your best work. And as I mentioned, while some elements of the application are optional, we really do recommend including these materials as they would make you a stronger candidate and give you a greater chance of being placed with one of our host companies. In a personal statement, in particular, it's great to emphasize your interest in the life sciences. And this is regardless of whether you are a bio major. I know that, makes it seem obvious you have an interest in the life sciences, or if you are, say, a business or a computer science major. Even if you are a business or computer science major, we know that you have applied to this program because you are interested in working in this field. And it's great to understand why you're interested in taking your specific skills and your specific area that you've studied and applying those skills within this field. Discuss your past experiences and why you want to now work in this industry. As in any part of your application to our program or to any job that you're applying for anywhere, it's really, really important to proofread everything carefully. You want to ensure that you don't have mistakes in spelling, grammar, or formatting. And we know that not everyone is a natural at spelling or writing, but when you're in the professional world, even if you're not a natural at one of those things, you are going to need to find a way to proofread or find resources to help you do that so that you can put out professional sounding content. And, when you are applying for a job, people want to see that you're going to be able to do that. So you may want to use spell check. It's often a good idea to ask somebody else to proofread for you, even if you are a good proofreader and a good speller. Sometimes, if you've worked really hard on something, you've seen it so many times that you sort of end up glancing right past those mistakes. So it's really good to have another set of eyes look at those things. With your resume, which Bill is going to talk more about later, you really also want to make sure that everything's perfect and you want to make sure that you're updating it regularly. Another optional piece of our application is recommendations. We don't require these, but it can be a great way to add credibility to your application and again, help make those hosts who are passionate about what they're building believe that they're going to be able to trust you to do your best if they choose to hire you. So a recommendation does not need to be from a professor in your field. That kind of recommendation is great and can be really good. And if you have that, certainly ask somebody to provide a recommendation like that. However, if you don't have that, you can still provide a recommendation that can be helpful. It really can be anybody who can speak to your character and your work ethic, except for a member of your family or a friend. So it could, for instance, be a professor who is in another field. It could be somebody who coaches you on a team or supervises you in an extracurricular activity. It could even be a spiritual leader who knows you well and knows your interests and your work ethic and your character. One thing that we urge you to do with a recommendation is we're not going to be asking you to submit letters of recommendation. We're going to be asking you to submit contact information for 1 to 2 references. So before you provide that contact information for somebody, you want to make sure that you ask their permission, because as soon as you submit that contact information to us, it's going to trigger an email that we send to them asking them to answer a few questions about you. And you don't want that email to get to them before they've said, okay, sure, I'd be happy to serve as a reference. And when you ask them their permission, we also recommend that you give them information about what our program is. So they know what it is you're applying for, and what they should say about you that would tell us that that you would be a good fit. So tell them a little bit about the program, and then also just give them a cheat sheet. This might even be your resume, about what are your qualifications, what are your goals in applying for this program, what kind of position are you looking for, and what is your experience. That way, when they write the recommendation, they're gonna have things right there in their hand that help them say why you would be a good fit. And I'm going to now pass the microphone to Bill, who's going to talk about resumes and cover letters.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Yeah, so Evan spoke a little bit about how the program works. Sharon told you a little bit more about the timeline and what a strong application looks like. But we're going to zoom in the next couple slides on resumes specifically and cover letters. And that's because these really are the core components that we'll be using when we assess your candidacy. Part of my role and also Evan's role on this team is screening every application that comes through our program. So over the course of a week, we see hundreds of applications. If it's in our busy season, we see many hundreds of applications each. So when we think of a resume, we are looking specifically for a resume that tells us what you did, how you did it, and what the outcomes of that work were. Really often, people will do a good job describing what they did, and they'll get less specific down this list. So they might not exactly tell us how they did the work that they did, and we don't always see the outcomes of that work either. One way to change your mindset here is to think, instead of thinking, this is what I did at my job every day, if you think a little bit bigger in terms of weekly experiences that you have, monthly experiences that you have, if you ever did like a specific presentation or a project, these are good ways to just answer these questions a little bit more fully. And when we're looking for outcomes, we're looking for like impact on an organization, right? So if you were collecting data somewhere, how was that data used in your time or after you left? If you were responsible for handling like a certain number of customers every day, how many customers did you handle? Like, did your performance ever improve? Things like that can be good color for your performance in a previous role. We want to see your technical skills in this resume, especially if you are applying to positions in more technical fields. So those are students who are looking for research positions specifically, or students who might be computer science majors as well. So you can list analytical skills you have, specific procedures that you've gone over in class or in previous experiences like internships. If you are somebody who's fluent in programming languages, include which ones those are. Really often, if you're looking for roles in computer science, the programming language is what we're screening for. If you speak other languages, it's helpful to include those as well, if you're fluent in them. We do have some positions in our portal that seek bilingual candidates specifically. Those positions will generally say so directly in the job description. So if you can include like how you've used that language before in previous volunteer experiences or work experiences, that's also really helpful to see. We recognize that not everybody has like previous formal job experiences or previous internship experiences. So what we're looking for on a resume can be broader than what you might imagine. If you've had classes that covered specific lab procedures, then that's just as helpful to see in terms of your fluency as previous research experience might be. So we encourage you to list previous lab classes or class projects that you've done throughout your education in the same way that you would list a previous experience or a previous job that you worked at. We also look for additional angles in your resume, things like volunteer experiences or leadership that you've had in your community. These can be less formal than positions or jobs that you've worked somewhere else, but oftentimes because they're less formal, we get to engage in leadership or teamwork in those areas more than we might in our day-to-day jobs. So these can be great ways to show that you have the soft skills that people are looking for in their job descriptions as well. Oftentimes, like a face-to-face interview is a great way for somebody to learn what kind of person you are or how you communicate. But there are ways that you can include past experiences that answer those questions even before a face-to-face interview. As Sharon said before, make sure that you proofread. The way that our program works, you'll only upload one resume for your entire profile. So you won't necessarily be tailoring a resume as intensely in our program as you would if you were applying to a position outside of us. But make sure you're proofreading. In the past, I've sent out the resume with like the wrong job title on it before and didn't realize until it was far too late to fix that problem. One last note, if you have an impressive GPA, you can include this in your resume. You might be asking, what's an impressive GPA? That's a better question to ask your professors because this does change from field to field and discipline to discipline. But you don't need to include your GPA in your resume if you feel like it doesn't necessarily reflect all of you. And we know that there's so much more to candidates than the GPAs that they have in school as well. So the other aspect of your applications that we'll be screening on a day-to-day basis is your cover letter. And the way that our program actually works is that once you submit your student application with us, you gain access to our job portal where it's up to you to decide which jobs you apply to and which internships you apply to. And then you'll write a specifically tailored cover letter for each position. And the reason that I'm breaking this down is that you might hear advice on the internet that cover letters are not important. You may even know that some of your industries that you hope to be a part of someday might be de-emphasizing cover letters. But for our program, they're a required part of the process. And they're a great way to learn more about each applicant. So we're going to jump into what makes a successful cover letter on the next page. So a cover letter, the goal of the cover letter is to connect your previous experience, which is listed on your resume, to the expectations and responsibilities of the position that you're applying for. You'll find those expectations and responsibilities in the job descriptions of the positions you're applying to, but it's up to you to make the connection between that and your past experience in your cover letter. Even if it seems really, really obvious to you what the connection is, it might be the exact same work that you're doing. It's still important to explicitly outline this in your cover letter because when people review your applications, they're not always spending extensive amounts of time with your cover letter or your resume. So a successful cover letter will cover the following points. It'll express your interest in the position or the company. I think really often we see people spend a lot of time on this first point, spend multiple sentences talking about why this company is the perfect company for them. But the reality is that you will be applying to many positions in all of your job searches. And so one way to express interest is also just to emphasize your skill fit and like what your value is up front. Then you'll talk about your major and your academic year. Some of the positions that we post specifically are available to specific academic years. Even in your careers after school, your major is going to matter a lot in the first few years of your career. And so getting that information clearly stated right away is really helpful. Next point in your cover letter should emphasize how the company's mission is relevant to your career goals or previous research. And what I want to draw everybody's attention to is that these first 3 points in our cover letter guide are just one sentence long. Really oftentimes we see people spend lots and lots of their cover letter on these first 3 points and they don't get to the rest of the elements in this guide. So yeah, one sentence for each of these, get the information clearly stated, and then get into the meat of your cover letter, which is bullet point number 4. Like I said earlier, connecting your previous experience, volunteer experience, internship experience, class experience, connecting that to what the expectations of the role are that you're applying to. Notice that this should be the longest part of your cover letter. It can be a good idea to talk about, 2 experiences if you have them instead of just one. And then in the final bullet points, summarize why you're a good fit for this position, and thank the person reading your cover letter for their time. So point number 5 can look a lot like point number 1. Like I said, somebody's not always reading these things incredibly closely. We take a lot of time with your application materials on our team. But like I said, Evan and I both see hundreds and hundreds of applications to positions every week. So even if you think it's being redundant, it's a good idea to restate it. Sharon mentioned AI earlier, and I want to emphasize AI again for cover letters here. We read a lot of cover letters every week. I'm not necessarily looking for like the next great novel in a cover letter, so I'm not going to worry if your opening paragraph sounds really similar in all of your cover letters. But we know what the opening paragraphs are from ChatGPT at this point. I'm not going to hold it against you. But the rest of your cover letter does really need to check off this list if that's what your opening statement is going to be. Oftentimes, ChatGPT will be too vague, and so it'll just state what you did, but it won't tell me why it was important. ChatGPT also makes up information. We've seen it pull the wrong information out of job descriptions before. I've had somebody write in the past that they knew they were a good fit for the position because like the hours were a good fit for them. So these are just examples of how like machines like that can miss the point of what a cover letter is supposed to do. I'm not going to say that every AI cover letter is going to be bad, but it's easier for AI cover letters to be bad. If you have questions about how to get a cover letter done, or if you're really struggling with it, one of the resources that we do provide is office hours for every element of your application. So if you're struggling with cover letters, you can schedule time with us. Same thing for resumes. If you're invited to interviews, we offer mock interviews as well. There's a lot of years of recruiting and hiring experience on our team. So we're able to simulate those interviews well because we've done them before. So this is just a breakdown of some more of the resources that we have available for you. You don't need to take these links down now. We will be sharing this slide deck out after this presentation. You can expect an email tomorrow. But like I said, we offer office hours. In office hours, we can cover everything from one-on-one resume support and cover letter support to the actual way that you go about moving through a job board and deciding which positions to apply to. If you have questions about how to get from where you are in your current academic career to your first step or your second step of your career, we do career coaching in office hours as well. Some of you may have come from our meetup group. You can join our meetup group. And our general inquiry email is internships@upperweststrategies.com. You can reach out to us with any questions that you have there. Professional resources on the right side of the screen. We have a cover letter cheat sheet. We also have 3 different industry resumes that are available for you. Those are research-based resumes, business-based resumes, and a tech-based resume. So you can reference whichever one you think fits your needs best. And we have guides for interviews and emails like the one you saw for resumes and cover letters as well. I think that brings us to the end of the slide deck, but I always forget one slide. This is actually, okay, great. This is actually the last slide. So we're gonna turn it over to Q&A. If you have questions, you can directly message one of the hosts with your questions. You can also raise your hand and we'll set up a queue that way. And then one of the hosts will ask you to come off mute and you can ask your question for the group.
Yeah, so I have just 2 questions that were asked directly to me. If you all have questions, you can go ahead and shoot those my way, and then I'll kind of read them off for our team to answer. The first question I got was from Sonia, and they asked, would we be offering off-cycle internships January through May timeline as well? So that was answered previously, but we do provide positions year-round. So starting right now, all the way up until summer, all the way up until our next cycle of September 1st, we have positions that are available. So yeah, it really depends on what your own time frame is and sort of what our companies are looking for. And then a follow-up question to that was, if we applied right now and got rejected for a role, could we still apply again to a different role in the future? And the answer is yes. You can apply to as many roles as you'd like. If you do get rejected from a role, that doesn't exclude you from applying to anything else. You can apply to 10 plus roles if you'd like. We just ask that you know, tailor your applications to those specifically to that role. I did get another question from Susan. It says, LifeSci NYC is coming to Hunter for the internship fair tomorrow. If we've already set up a profile online, should we still stop by the table to say hello? It'd be great if you wanted to say hello. There wouldn't be too much of a benefit to, you know, listening to our whole spiel because you already got the extended version here. But yeah, go ahead, stop by. We can give you a little bit more information, but beyond that, you've gotten everything that you need at this point.
And we do like to meet our applicants in person, so we'd love for you to say hello.
Yeah, that was the last direct message that I got. Oh, I did get another one from Jackie. Actually, a few more coming in. So Jackie asks, may I ask if one cover letter goes to all roles in companies, or should we tailor it to different roles in different companies? Sharon, would you like to answer that?
Sure. So as Bill was saying, you know, there are the certain steps to writing a good cover letter, and that the answers to those various questions kind of or items that were there are not going to be the same for every position you're applying for. So one of the things that a cover letter does is it makes the case that you have genuine interest in the employer's mission of what they're trying to accomplish with their business, as well as genuine interest in the specific duties of that job that you're applying for. So you are not going to be able to do that by sending the same cover letter to every employer. So you really want to keep those things in mind as you're writing each cover letter. And there may be parts of the cover letter that are going to be the same for most of your applications, but you want to make sure that each one is distinguished to really make a case for why you'd be able to make a great contribution there. How you're qualified for the specific things they're looking for, and how you have interest and passion in what they are trying to do as a company.
The next question we got was, what about international students with limited working hours? Yeah, Bill, would you want to?
Yeah, thanks so much, Evan. Yeah, so it is the case often that our international students have less working hours than available. It's not necessarily something that will keep you out of positions. If there's ever a position that won't be considering international students, they'll say so in the job description. But due to limiting working hours, sometimes we see those international students be more interested in our academic year internships, which fundamentally are part-time as a rule. And so I'm trying to remember when we said this in the presentation, just so I can give credit, but I think it was probably Sharon who said that our internships are in the summer for 40 hours a week for 10 weeks, which gets you to 400 hours. In the academic year, interns can also work up to those 400 hours. It's just stretched over part-time. So we encourage international students to apply as long as you have the clearance to work in the country. If you have questions about those sorts of things, we can answer a little bit more specifically offline, but also your campus resource center for international students will definitely know more than we do. So you can direct any additional questions to them too.
Thanks, Bill. We have one more question from Martin, and you can all keep the questions coming if you'd like. But it said that we cannot modify our application once it is submitted. Can we still update our resume with new projects? The answer is yes. So the limitation is that our platform, once you've submitted your application, is sort of unmodifiable by you, but we can modify any material that you'd like. If any information in your application changes, for instance, your GPA or maybe your academic year, you can message us that information update and we'll do it for you. We just ask that you send PDF documents to us if it's going to be a transcript or resume so that it is compatible with our platform. We have a few more questions. Santoro asks, is compensation up to LifeSci or the host companies? What is a typical compensation range? Sharon, do you want to answer that?
Sure. So we require that all of our hosts pay at least minimum wage, which I believe is $16 an hour right now in New York State. However, the vast majority of our positions pay at least $18 an hour, and there are a good number that actually pay more. It's up to the various companies to decide how much they're paying for a particular position, but we do make sure that they are paying you as an hourly employee and that it is at least minimum wage. The full-time jobs, if you apply for one of those, may actually provide an annual salary. But we always indicate in the job description how much the position pays.
Thank you, Sharon. The last question I've gotten is from Wendy, and they ask, are all internships in person or are there only online and hybrid ones? Bill, would you want to answer that?
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Internship parameters are up to the hosts that we work with. So like we said earlier, when you submit an application to our program, you get access to our job board where you'll see every host partner that we partner with. We just provide the initial screen. So if you apply to us, we screen you, and if we think it's a good idea to send you on to the company, every decision is up to the company after that. But because we work with so many different companies, expectations are different for each role and for each company. So we have everything from in-person work, just completely in person for things like research roles, to fully remote work for things like computer science-based jobs. We see hybrid often in our portal, but these things are generally pretty clearly outlined in the job description. And we encourage you as you go to apply to positions through us and outside of us to just clearly seek that information in interviews as well.
Thanks, Bill. So that's all the questions I've gotten. If anyone has a last minute one, you can still send that to us or raise your hand via Zoom, and we can have you share as well. But otherwise, like we mentioned, we will be sending out the recording of this session as well as the presentation that we used during this meeting. So you'll have all of that information, all of the links that we've discussed, and you can immediately start your application process if you'd like. So yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone for attending. We appreciate the participation and the questions that you had. Oh, I actually did get a last minute question really quick. So the research roles resource you provide here are more academic based or more relevant to industry? I'm not too sure how to answer that. Bill, Sharon, Zara, do y'all have any insight into that question?
Well, we have both. We do offer some positions that are at academic research institutions, whereas we offer others in industry. I would say we have more positions in industry than we do in academia. But regardless sort of where you'd like to land ultimately in your career, I think either of these types of opportunities can be great experiences for learning and to add to your resume to make you a stronger job candidate in the future. Of course, you are always welcome to select the particular roles to apply for that are most of interest to you, but do keep in mind that a wide variety of experiences can make you a stronger candidate in the future and can also help you learn a lot about what you might be most interested in doing in the future. So I would encourage you to look at both of those types of opportunities.
Thanks, Sharon. Last question, I believe. But should recommenders only be from the United States, or is it okay if they're from another country? Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we restrict to only US-based recommendations. You're welcome as long as they meet the criteria that we talked about. then you're welcome to have them as a reference, even if they're outside of the US. As long as the reference is translated into English, that is essentially the only restriction. Okay, great. So that is all the questions that I've gotten. If y'all have any others, you can join us in office hours or reach out to us at internships@upperweststrategies.com. But thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.